Hey everyone, what's up? Today we are taking a closer look at Geekom's new version of the A9 Max mini PC, which is now equipped with an AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX470 12-core CPU, but other than that it is mainly the same hardware with the same design as the previous version. Full disclosure, Geekom sent me the A9 Max for a review, but there was no payment involved and they had no say in my script or the review in general, and I wasn't obliged to publish a review at all. So let's have a detailed view at the specs of the A9 Max first. The 12-core Zen 5 based AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX470 in here is just a very light refresh of the AI 9 HX370. It's basically the same CPU with slightly higher boost clocks and now up to 86 instead of 80 tops as before. Other than that, it's the same CPU with the same Radeon 890M iGPU that now also has a slightly higher boost clock of 3100 instead of 2900 MHz. In the A9 Max, the HX470 runs with a constant power draw of around 45 watt. Right now, the A9 Max is paired with a single stick of 32GB of DDR5 5600 MT/s RAM. That means it's not able to get its full performance in gaming and creative tasks like video editing, but more on that later. And I was talking with Geekom about this, suggesting that they should also offer an option with two 16GB sticks instead, and they promised to consider it. The 2TB Kingston PCIe Express 4 SSD is pretty fast with around 5GB/s for reading and writing. The second slot in here is a shorter 2020-30 PCI Express Generation 4 slot though, meaning suitable SSDs could be harder to find and will most likely be a bit more expensive than their longer counterparts. For data transfer, we're getting a Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4 card, as well as two 2.5 gigabit LAN ports, which can be used as a backup or to separate an intranet from the internet, for example, and some other options. There's a smaller proprietary 120 watt power supply included, as well as a VESA mount to install the A9 Max at the back of a monitor if you'd like that. And Geekom also includes an HDMI cable and a small quick start guide. Opening the A9 Max is quite tricky, as you'll first need to get rid of these 4 rubber feet, then loosen the 4 screws and open it with some prying force. Inside you'll find another shield that you'll have to get rid of with 4 additional screws. And that one has the Wi-Fi/Bluetooth antenna attached to it, so it's pretty likely that you'll rip off that connector, especially if you don't remove the black tape that fixates it on this shield first. Because to reattach it, you'll first need to uninstall the SSD and the Wi-Fi module. So while it's doable, handle with a lot of care. Inside we get access to the 2 RAM slots, the 2 SSD slots and the Wi-Fi/Bluetooth card. The port selection here is just like the previous model and the identical A7 Max top-notch and offers the following options. At the front we're getting one 3.5mm audio jack and no less than 4 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports, while one of them comes with always-on power delivery. And there's the power button. At the back we're getting 2 more USB Type A ports, one of them 3.2, the other USB 2, and 2 USB 4 Type C ports, which can do display out, and one of them can be used to power the A9 Max via USB-C. By the way, an external GPU works as well since USB 4 is Thunderbolt compatible. We're also getting 2 HDMI 2.1 ports and the 2 2.5 gigabit LAN ports. So that's a total of 8 USB ports, and it supports up to 4 displays. That's pretty cool. And on the left side, we're getting a full-sized SD card reader with decent transfer speeds. By the way, the A9 Max does not have a microphone or speakers of any kind. Due to the RAM crisis, today's tested version is priced at around $1,700, while the previous version with the HX370 is $200 cheaper, and considering the HX470 isn't really an upgrade, I definitely recommend the HX370 version, since you're just not going to notice the difference, like at all. Make sure to check the comments and the description for potential discount codes if I can get you any. Also worth mentioning is that Geekom is providing a 3 years warranty here. The A9 Max is around 13 by 13 by 5 centimeters in size and weighs around 600 grams without the AC adapter. The design is typical for a Geekom product. A full metal unibody made out of aluminum, and it's pretty resistant to fingerprints. There's a matte flag plastic at the back and the bottom, which looks and feels premium. I don't know why they added that HDMI sticker at the front though. Software-wise, Geekom does not provide a control center of any kind, and there wasn't a BIOS update available yet. But if you look at the older IT13 mini PC by Geekom, they do offer BIOS updates after a while. That means there is no way to control the fans other than using the BIOS, where we can choose one of the 3 fan modes: silent, balanced and performance, in the otherwise pretty basic BIOS, which you can enter on startup by hitting the delete key. Though there is a very advanced BIOS giving you almost complete freedom to tinker with the hardware, including curve optimizer, core disabling and TDP adjustments, etc. The mentioned fan modes slightly impact the A9 Max's performance, as they determine how much heat the CPU has to deal with. And we'll look at some benchmark results in a bit. By the way, the idle power consumption of the whole mini PC is around 9 watt if you're not doing anything with it, which would be absolutely impossible for a full regular desktop PC of any kind, especially with a strong 12-core CPU. But before we're talking about the performance, let's look at the fan loudness using the balanced mode. If we leave the A9 Max on idle, it's a pretty silent whisper, undistinguishable from the rest of my room, around 30 to 33 decibels at a distance of 50 centimeters. The fan is always on, but super quiet when the system is idling. It starts to get slightly hearable watching a 4K YouTube video, but it's not annoying at all. Under full load in a longer Cinebench run, which utilizes the CPU by 100%, I then measured around 42 decibel. Considering the CPU, the cooling system is doing a satisfying job, and it's definitely not too loud overall. Since the performance in games and a lot of benchmarks depends on whether we are running the system with 1 or 2 RAM sticks, I also tested a lot of benchmarks with 2 32GB sticks of DDR5 to show what the A9 Max can actually do with a better RAM configuration. And here it won't matter if it's 32 or 64GB in total. Now, in Cinebench 2024, I saw up to 1151 points in the multi-core and 119 points in the single-core test with 1 RAM stick, and up to 11% higher 1280 and 122 points with the 2 RAM sticks. For Geekbench 6, the single-core config achieved 2778 for the single-core and 11283 for the multi-core test. For the dual-channel config, that was a 9% higher 3041 for the single-core and a whopping 47% higher 16551 for the multi-core score. The Geekbench AI score isn't affected by that, and I saw the following results. For the new PC Mark X, it achieved 8003 points in single-channel mode and only 3% higher 8229 points in dual-channel mode. I also ran the new Budget Systems benchmark for Adobe Photoshop, which resulted in 8088 points for Photoshop with single channel and 11730 points in dual channel mode. Very hamstrung by the RAM here, with a big difference of 45%. For Premiere Pro, that was 19,423 versus 32,768 points, a huge advantage of 69% for the dual channel config. You definitely want to use 2 RAM sticks for creative work. Like, if you're getting this mini PC, try to sell the single stick and get 2 16GB sticks instead if you're not getting a second 32GB stick in the first place. This is also very important for gaming, as the iGPU in here will use the system RAM as VRAM and is very much depending on the memory bandwidth, which is basically only half as good with a single stick of RAM, even if it's DDR5. We can see that in the 3D Mark Firestrike benchmark, where with the single stick of 32GB I got a very low total of only 5123 points, and with 2 32GB sticks it was 74% more with a total of 8896. The same for TimeSpy with 4225 for the dual channel config, while only 2738 for the single channel stick 32GB of RAM, a 54% difference. In the Cyberpunk 2077 benchmark at 1080p with medium settings and FSR on quality, I saw a big difference of 28.5 versus 53.8 FPS as well. That's a 89% difference between unplayable for most people and playable just quite well, so almost twice the performance. For Assassin's Creed Shadows at 1080p with ultra low settings and FSR on quality, I also ran the integrated benchmark for both configurations, which resulted in 30 versus 51 FPS, a vast difference of 70%. I mean, if you're neither gaming or doing stuff like video editing, etc., you don't really need to care. You won't notice the difference in surfing, watching YouTube and office-related work stuff. But if you're only doing that stuff anyways, you could also look out for a cheaper model, which would do the job just as fine. So keep that in mind. And now, last but not least, let's also take a look at the actual gaming performance of the A9 Max, for which I was using 2 Ramsticks to show its real performance in some popular titles. But before we start, I have to point out a significant design flaw. It seems as if on the silent and balanced fan modes, the RAM is overheating inside of here, and that is often causing severe stuttering and frame time issues in most modern games once that starts after a few minutes, rendering them kind of unplayable. This could be fixed by either opening the A9 Max or, well, using the fan performance mode in the BIOS instead. But I don't know how this would fare at a higher room temperature of, let's say, 30 degrees Celsius. The first game for today will be Arc Raiders, in which I saw a nice average of 83 FPS with the lowest settings at 1080p plus FSR on quality and 1% lows of around 61 FPS. That is playable perfectly fine, and either higher settings or 1440p with strong upscaling would be an option as well, while still maintaining 60 FPS on average, though the game is optimized quite well to begin with. Of course, CS2 ran even better at 1080p low settings with FSR activated. 147 FPS on average with 1% lows of 83 FPS in a match against bots on DOS 2. And that would even be enough for a 144Hz display and some more sophisticated gaming. The brand new Crimson Desert is also playable with 43 FPS on average using 1080p, low settings and FSR on quality. Sure, that's far from being overwhelming, but the game really does offer some nice graphics in return. 1% lows have been around 34 FPS, so a stable performance overall, and well, it's doable I guess. For Cyberpunk 2077 I went with medium settings at 1080p and FSR on quality once more. That resulted in an average of 49 FPS and 1% lows of 33, caused by slightly unstable frame times, especially in driving scenes, but overall doable and will still have some headroom for higher FPS by reducing the graphics a bit. And Forza Horizon 5 ran perfectly fine with an average of around 100 FPS using 1080p for the resolution with high settings and MSAA by 2. Good 1% lows of 80 FPS, no doubts about it at all. And I also tried that one with 1440p for the resolution as well. Surprisingly high FPS with around 73 FPS on average and 1% lows of 58 using the high settings again. Nice. So lighter games could be doable with higher resolutions if you've got a good pile of shame for a backlog. And while I was editing this video, Forza Horizon 6 was finally released. So of course I had to give that one a try. And spoiler, it's not running as good as Forza Horizon 5. At 1080p with the medium preset and FSR set to quality, I saw an average of 68 FPS, which is playable in general, but the 1% lows have been quite bad with only 30 FPS, caused by constant micro stutters, especially once I was driving really fast. The integrated benchmark doesn't show these stutters at all, by the way, so it might be an issue with the multiplayer/online part, and it could be fixed with further game or driver updates. The game is still playable at 1440p as well, with medium settings and FSR set to balance this time. 55 FPS on average and 1% lows of 29. Overall noticeably less FPS than in the previous game though, and well, the stuttering is quite annoying. Well, you probably know that times are tough for manufacturers. The insane increase in RAM and even SSD prices is paying its toll. If they want to keep the prices low, they would have to drastically lower the performance with smaller, slower and less RAM sticks, which clearly isn't Geekom's fault, but I still would have definitely preferred 2 16GB sticks for this one instead if I have to settle with 32GB in the first place, or at least the option to choose. I really like the design of Geekom's hardware. It's got a great port selection and it manages to stay relatively silent, especially on idle and easier tasks. And with a better RAM config, the overall performance is pretty high. What bothered me the most was the opening process, the lonely 32GB stick of DDR5 RAM, and the RAM throttling overheating issue in gaming. Again, if you can, definitely try to get it with 2 sticks or upgrade it yourself, like sell the 32GB stick and get 2 16GB sticks instead. PS, if you're interested in the eGPU topic, make sure to check out this video next. If you want to get the Geekom A9 Max for yourself, make sure to use the link in the description and see if I was able to get you a discount code. And that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed the content, consider liking the video or even subscribe to the channel. That helps a lot. Thank you. Also, thanks for watching until the very end. See you next time. Bye bye and tschüss.